Welcome to Tales from the Tinkerage, and as you can see in the last video, we've finished tidying. Well, I finished tidying as I'm the only person that's actually done any tidying here, as I'm the person who made the mess. Thought it might be nice to do a little bit of a shop tour. I know some people don't like shop tours, but yeah, I think it's the thing to do. As I mentioned before, I do have a rather tiny shop. It's less than 70 square feet, but I'll show you the shop and I'll show you where I keep some of my material goods, and I'll show you where I do some of my work. I'm going to show you around. What's your best place to start? So small it shouldn't be that difficult to find somewhere to start. So we'll start at the door. From the inside, the door is rather difficult to spot. Storage is so tight in here, I've actually built a pile of storage onto the back of the door. So most of this is stuff that I use semi-periodically. I do store my chisels here. I've got a nice deep box there to protect the blades. Some of this I could probably do with getting rid of. There's some quite junk here. So I've got a bit of a screwdriver bay down here. Some plastic bag storage, always useful to have a few plastic bags around. Some G-clamps down the bottom. Some saws. Quite like these Spear & Jackson Predator saws. Had a good deal on those in B&Q, which is one of the British DIY box stores. I think it was £10 for two. So I've got an 8 points per inch and a 10 points per inch. Find those very, very useful. So most of the tools here are things that I don't use frequently, but it's a good storage space to have. Now moving round. So behind this stand for overhead videoing, I've got a little attachment here. Basically it's an embroidery stand, or an embroidery hoop that my wife was given but didn't like to use. I've just got a piece of old ruler there which is actually sort of hinged, and then a camera mount which is actually designed for an ice axe. So that's there, that's my useful little catch. Now behind here, just a series of drawers, all sorts of things, washers, etc. Make quite a lot of use of ice cream tubs. They stack nicely. Square one, I prefer the square ones, but we prefer the ice cream that comes in the shaped tubs. Always a good place to put things. I've got some power up there behind my lamp. Just put the lamp down, and then just wedged above there a few bits and bobs. Now into the corner. So more drawer racking here, and just a little bit of shelving, some sorting tubs with some electronics in there, socket set, first aid kit. Always important, I think, to keep some first aid items close by. Stereo. This is a Stereo Technics CD player I've had for a very, very long time. I bought that about 30 years ago. It still serves me well. Great. I love to listen to tunes when I'm playing. I've got a Marillion CD in there at the moment. And just to keep the size down, the amplifier and speakers are literally just a pair of old Dell PC speakers. My CDs, just actually go back and get those earlier. There are my CDs. You can probably tell I'm an 80s child by some of the content there. Also like a bit of prog rock and a bit of middle of the road American ballad type rock. Right below the CD player I've got a series of jars. This is a tip I picked up a very, very long time ago reading DIY books as a small child. Just some jam jars, curry paste jars, coffee jars, mayonnaise jars, the lids are screwed to a piece of board, and then the jars are there, and just assorted nuts and bolts and screws and washers. Serve me very well in fixing many things. If I have something that's going to be scrapped, I'll try and rescue as many screws as I can and washers. I've got a few more spare jars down here. May have to recycle them. They've been sitting around for a few years now. I'm not sure I've got a space for them unless I literally put it onto the ceiling, which is a possibility. Right, over into the corner. So more of a conventional tool board. Apart from the spanners and the hammer, these are tools that I don't use particularly often. I've got a mind to change around and get tools that I use more often onto there. Now that I've got the Tinkerage Tidy, made a little holder here for my wrenches rather than putting them onto the wall flat. Just a little exercise that I want to do, serves them quite well, keeps them handy. More jars higher up, and then on top next to the, I've got a shelf there, this upper shelf, and this is literally the ceiling, so I'm not very tall, I'm 5'8", and I can touch the ceiling quite easily. All these containers, mostly electronics, some other bits and bobs. It's another little option here, some hooks hanging underneath the shelf. It's my hot glue gun, and some tubes. These are just connecting wires, they all need repairing. I work in a school and these often get thrown out. It's just more cost effective to throw them out and buy new ones than to repair, which I find difficult, and so I shall repair them. I've often got halves of each, so I just need a bit of time to do that. Another sorting tray. I really do need to sort these out. They are completely mixed. If you look closely there, you can see I've got trays with dowels, pop rivets, and then all sorts of assorted electronics, mostly connectors. Bottom tray here contains sort of some cutting tools. There goes the magnetic spirit levels. Spirit levels with a magnetic strip often get stored underneath there. And then here I have my tool rack for spanners. Variety of sources. Do seem to have lost my 14mm spanner. I'm not sure what's happened to that. Had a complete set. Seem to have lost one, so that one's 14mm, but I think it's 14mm. Let's just double check. Seems to fit the bill. Yeah, that's a 14mm. Some sockets there. Those get used fairly frequently. Magnifying glass. My filter mask for my painting. I've got some diving weights that I managed to pull out of a skip, useful for holding things down. Multimeter, of course, for fixing things. So shelf below electronic storage is another shelf, again a scaffolding board. A few years ago I managed to get hold of a stack of scaffolding boards. Did pay for them, but they were very cheap. They were ungraded, they weren't suitable for actually using on scaffolding. And they've been very good for making shelves and a variety of other projects. Power tools stored there, so I've got some bits at the end there, tin with jigsaw blades, Dremel bits, drill bits, stored just above it. Circular saw, very cheap circular saw, does the job. Bought it for cutting OSB boards for a re-roof in a shed many years ago. Set at 90 degrees by the blade, not by the guide. Power planer, given that by a relative, no longer uses it. My first plunger outer, again cheap plunger outer, it's 1/4 inch, does the job, cheap and cheerful. You have to hold the button on, so no good really for a router table without modifying the switch. A Bosch jigsaw, that was a wedding present, stepfather-in-law. And we have a little circular saw, basically a bit like a manual grinder with a little circular saw on it. I find that quite useful, particularly cutting thin board. Again, that was a Christmas present. And I've got a series of orbital sanders, belt sander, and in the corner detail sander. I keep my sanding discs and belts in shoebox. Work perfectly for that. And the folders underneath, those are my sheets of sandpaper. They're just manila folders, and on the corner of each folder I have the grades. If you can see that, so there's my 180 grit, so that's stored in there. So if I get a particular new grit, then I will add that on. This is my main working area. So I've actually got 2 bench spaces. This is the original one by the window. So when I installed bench in here, it's a kitchen worktop, and then I had just like a wall unit fitting in the space to the right. And a few years ago, it was starting to fall apart. I wanted to rearrange. I got rid of that, and we now have a second bit of benching. Again, managed to get hold of the same kitchen worktop, relatively cheap to get offcuts. Again, I think it was from B&Q. I built that in there. Slightly higher. I tend to use that, as you can tell by the power supply that I rescued from going into a skip because the key system didn't work anymore. That's where I do quite a bit of electronics and more detailed things. And as you can see there by some of the sort of tools I've got here, a variety of sort of different drill bits. Got my router bits there on a little platen on the wall, a couple of drills, drivers. I've got a 18-volt Makita, had that quite a long time. Brushes are a bit worn now, but it still does a job. But I replaced it with a 18-volt DeWalt, which I quite like. I don't have a genuine Dremel. I've got a Black & Decker Wizard, which I inherited from my father when he passed on. And then a variety of tools. Some of these tools are for jewellery working. So you can see here I've got emery boards. And these are actually good quality files, and hammers that I try and keep in good condition. I've got burnishers, a jewellery saw, and blades, which are keeping some old pens. So that's one of the things that I do sometimes like to make. A variety of pliers. Some of those are jewellery pliers, some electronics. Some are general purpose. I've got tin snips, silver snips, conventional screwdrivers, they're not screwdrivers, conventional pliers, so sort of needle nose, combination, let's balance that back up on there, wire cutters, so conventional wire cutters and cross-cut wire cutters, sliding square, little small hammer. I find that so useful. And over here I shall just zoom in so you can see in a little bit more detail. Little tip I picked up on Pinterest. Some drain pipe cut at an angle to about 45 degrees, and then just screw in the bottom. Great for storing scissors, clamps, micrometers, not micrometers, just calipers, Allen key, torque keys, pens, some glue. In the corner there we have hot glue gun. It's not hot glue gun, it's just a standard hot gun. Getting tired now, it's very hot here today, well over 35 degrees in this part of Kent in the UK, which we're not used to, and I'm certainly not used to. So just quite a nice, kind of old now. Again, that was a wedding present from the same guy who gave me the jigsaw. I've got some punches, some sharpening things hiding there behind the bandsaw, and then also hiding behind the bandsaw I've got my SDS drill, Bosch hammer, a great bit of kit with some of the longer bits stored there just above. Tucked here in the corner, the little bandsaw, got to give them that. I'd love to replace it, just a little bench top bandsaw. It's aluminium top, I'm not even sure of the make. It's let's just get in there quickly, have a look at the power line. I don't know if they make those anymore. It's a very standard sort of type of small bench top. My drill press. I did have a very large drill press at one point, but I just didn't have the space. Bearings were wonky, so I sold that at a car boot fair. This little drill press I've had for, it's just an attachment for a drill. For British viewers, the drill was from Woolworths. That shows you how old it is. Woolworths closed down in the UK many years ago. The press itself came from Lidl, kind of Lidl and Aldi, German supermarkets over in UK here. They're known as being sort of budget supermarkets, but some of their tools are pretty good. Right, into the corner, go down this side before zipping away. Not the most accessible of corners. I have a tray full of old electronics. This are drawers, really stiff, all sorts of electronic bits and bobs that I salvaged from being thrown out. And in the back, again, ice cream tubs, just bits and bobs. I really do need to get rid of some of that. There is some junk. Just zipping back along this way while we're down low. Here's my table saw. Now at some point I might put up a video, it's probably be a slideshow of the process of making that table saw trolley. It's not a piece of fine woodworking, but I don't have the space in here to keep it out, so it's a heavy thing. Picked it up off eBay. It's a nice bit of kit. I've had to adjust the blade to the fence and to the trunnions, but that's done now, and I hope to use it a bit more. I need to make a sled for it. I'm not sure where I'm going to store that, maybe down the side. And on the bottom then I have storage for, I keep all my plumbing tools in one tote that allows me to actually sort of get to them quickly. The grey one is tools for sort of silverworking, and the black box, which inherited the box without the router in. For those who are good at recognising codes and zooming in, That's my angle grinders. I have 3 small angle grinders, and they do a job quite nicely. Going back around, staying low for the moment. There's my compound miter saw. I think it's a 9-inch blade. It's relatively cheap. It was less than £100 UK, but it's nice. It does the job. I've had to adjust it a few times. In the corner, I just put, back in the corner there, it's just boxes of bits, things I don't use very often. And underneath, more tubs of bits. The tub there is just bits of metal that I want to make use of. Staying low, I have a bench grinder there. That's set up with pigtail for mops. On the other side of it, I've got a wire brush, which is something I use quite regularly. I've got my scroll saw, which is in desperate need of a refurbish. I'm not going to pull that out, it's very heavy. I've got another bench grinder underneath there, which has got a couple of conventional stones on. And then I have a 1/2-inch router, which is great for refurbing kitchens, but a bit too heavy for other things. Paint storage, spray paints, a variety of cables and power supplies in the tub next to it. Computer I salvaged. I like the format. It's one of these kind of all-in-ones, original all-in-one computer. I like the format of that. Hopefully I'll get that working in here, probably on a Linux or Ubuntu distro, but it's going to take a little bit of working. I'm not sure what's not right with it. I'm hoping it's not the motherboard. If it's the motherboard, it may end up, I'm afraid, going into pieces for bits and bobs and then being scrapped, although I might try and save the monitor. And that's my shop vac, a little Henry vac. That was again a salvage job. It wasn't working. Common problem with the Henry vacs is the sliding contact for where the wires go wrong. This one actually sort of bypassed that, although when I did that, eventually discovered it wasn't that was the problem, but the all-in-one molded plug was faulty. So replace the plug, and that works a treat. Great box is full of spanners, just kind of, I've got 50-year-old spanners that were my father's, probably 60 or 70-year-old, some of them. That's useful sometimes. Lots of imperial as well as metric spanners. I keep most of my metric spanners out. Talking of things from my father, there's a little stack of tools there next to my, we'll call it a screwdriver. One of my projects, sorting through, I've found some of the tools of my father's. The tools I don't use, I'm going to clean some of them up and then make maybe like a framed shadow box to put them in, and then put it up somewhere in the house. Just remind me of the sort of things that I inherited from my father, and kind of way of making things. Now we've done sort of 3 sides, so time to zip round to the 4th side. So there's the door. You can see that's light starting to creep in. I'll stay low for the moment. A couple of chests of drawers, again just got rescued from being kicked out, just used to store all sorts of things. So the unlabeled drawers tend to be assorted junk, projects that I want to make use of, electronics. Label ones, I've got a drawer there just stacked with paper. Just I like having paper handy, and Ziploc bags. I've got a drawer there with sorting trays in it, a variety of different types of trays and tubs and pots. Just great for sort of sorting things out if you're sorting through screws, and they're so useful. You can see there the metal strip and the wooden top. If I just move the head out of the way, a couple of jars of paint cleaner. This is my sink. I don't keep it open very often, which is why I put a top on it. There's a couple of holes there for any drips to go through. And it's just great if you're doing a cleaning job. Sometimes it's nice to work outside rather than sort of get dirty things going inside. Originally there was a Belfast type sink. Just wasn't practical. It was cracked, it was dirty, and when I refurbed the kitchen I took out the old stainless steel sink and put that in here. A little bit more worktop there. I've got some sealants. I need to find somewhere else to put my clipboards and some other paper and a couple of books that I find useful. And then just assorted racks, shelves, cable clips, tape, lubricants, my battery charging station, gloves. Store my gloves here. I use these bulldog clips. I've got a hook, just clip them on, keeps them together. It's a bit Difficult sometimes to get to a particular glove if it's at the back, but I tend to keep the gloves I use most frequently or used lately at the front. Tubs and tubs of nails. Don't use a huge amount of nails. Screws. I need to top up my screws. I've got a bit low on some of those boxes. I've only got 3 or 4 screws in each. My jewellery peg. And then more tubs. So I've got tubs with drill bits, a variety of different types of drill bits. So we've got about 4 tubs there with different types of drill bits, hole saws, Forstner bits, spade bits, masonry, more screws, more screws, more screws. These tend to be the sort of screws that get given to you when if I'm doing a particular task. So pot there of self-tapping screws. I needed some self-tapping screws of one particular size, and then the spare ones kept in their packets go into there. The assorted screws behind the grey tub of wood glue. It's little packets of wood glue you get given when you put furniture together. Wall fittings, taken to using blue tape, probably watching too much Casey Neistat, really taken with the blue tape he uses to put on things, so I started doing that. Works really nicely. Some of the labels, the white labels I use, sometimes peel off, so it'll be interesting to see how the blue masking tape works. More screws, glue, chemicals, greases, top shelf then, boxes of furniture for cupboards, door furniture, gate locks, tubs of string up there, pens, and then just ice cream tubs, variety of things, bolts, a couple of tubs full of bolts, picture hooks, just those little things. What do you do with them? I do wonder if I need so many hose fittings that they all fit into a tub. They should be on my hoses, but every now and again hose fittings break. Biscuits. I don't have a biscuit jointer. I sometimes get to borrow one. I do have a attachment for my router for doing biscuits, though don't use that very often. It's just so awkward. I would like a biscuit jointer at some point. Brackets, clips, miscellaneous bits and bobs, greeblies, kitchen spares. So I've fitted so many kitchens now, just for different houses we lived in, that I've got a whole tub full of spares and spare hinges. I often find they come with more than you need. Tin of wire wool, tin of cable ties, gloves. Okay, so this is a rather messy patio. There's some bits that I need to throw away. These 2 items generally get stored in the Tinkerage as well. So I've got a little metal stool, again rescued from a skip at school. A little extra bench top that I made, just to work out a little bit higher, working on things. Like a Black & Decker multi-bench. I think it's just a B&Q special. I forgot to mention that actually. Let's go back in the workshop. So let's move my friend there. So because I don't want to drill into this worktop, I'll just keep a couple of pieces of scaffolding board. This one's just loose, and I keep a little bit of this anti-movement mat underneath it. This one's a bit more like a sawhorse. Not a sawhorse, I forgot the name of it. Bench hook, that's the name I'm looking for. So a bit more of a bench hook style, which you can work on. If I need to bang something really heavy, I probably don't do it in here. I do have a little bench hook actually up here, which I made many years ago, which is very, very useful. Just stored up there. Oh, gap there. It's actually the old chimney. This used to be a scullery a very long time ago. If you're not sure what a scullery is, look it up. It's for washing. So patio often gets used for DIY. By British standards, we've got quite a long garden. And here's the first of the sheds. I've got some plywood there left over from a recent job. This is a shed. Plastic tubs just full of bits and bobs, decorating materials, electrics, and I just seem to be able to collect more and more of those. Tubs full of just assorted junk, plumbing bits, more junk, tools, things like building tools, trowels, hammers, crowbars, more junk. Then we've got sort of gardening tools, of course, in here. Now this is a project that I'm thinking of at some point for the future. This was a fire axe that my father had when he was in the fire service back in the 1960s. It needs a bit of a serious clean-up. It's one of these rubberized handles, so I'm not sure how we'll do that, but certainly the top can be cleaned up a bit. Yes, general sort of barbecue garden type things, more decorating things. Tile cutter. If you do need tiling, get a tile cutter. They make life so much easier. So not a huge shed. Go back out further down the garden through the wilderness. This is the wild end of the garden, and this is the second shed. So this is where I keep the sort of spare wood from jobs. If I go past a skip, I'll scrounge wood out of skips. Long gun materials stored up here, so I'll put a bar across down there, and then up here I've got two half bars, one there, one here, so I can put materials in and then hook them across. So great for things like pipe left over from jobs. These cheaper to buy in bulk, so often end up with material left over. It's great for obviously then doing other jobs. And just, yeah, sorted junk. Copy stand again, pulled out of a skip at work. Second workmate. Ladders. Foam pulled out of a skip. More things just pulled out of a skip. Little offcuts of wood. I don't know about other people, but I find it difficult to not throw away things like this. The number of times when I just need a little piece of wood and being able to rescue some from there. Pipe work as well, just hiding behind here. We've got a variety of pipe again, some of it salvaged, some of it taken over from other jobs. I think if I didn't have this storage space, oh, there's a Dyson cleaner in there. It's my intent with the purple and blue. It's my intent at one point to, and I may still do this, actually half cut that apart to be used as a wall mounted dust collector. Camping things, roof box. I'm lucky I've got two sheds which are secure, but neither of them have power, and it's just they're both too far from the house to economically run power to them, and I'd have to insulate them. Luckily the workshop I have is brick built, so the walls are solid, so it's great for attaching things to. There's power out there, there's water there, and it's really, really useful. These sheds, great for storage, but as I've said, just too far from the house to economically actually run cables to them for power to do it safely. So that's not been an option, but great for storing the sort of leftovers and the things that I've scrounged, including, mustn't forget of course, like a lot of people, I hope Tim, Phil and Bill from Reclaimed Audio, proud of the fact that I've got some pallets there. At some point I must do something with them. These are ones that are actually sort of the scrappers, the ones that are not quite so good, but I did use for a project, which again I might make a video about based on a slideshow. So that's my workshop tour or my storage tour. Hope you enjoyed it. Maybe you picked up a few ideas. If you've got some ideas on how I can improve what I've got, I'd love to hear them down in the comments. If you want to see more of my making, if you want to see more of the projects that I do, please do like and subscribe.